Hi everyone, Miss Tilly here. Today I'm going to read to you one of my favorite books, Counting on Katherine. This is the story of how Katherine Johnson saved Apollo 13. She's one of my favorite mathematicians. Check out this first inside cover with all that beautiful math. Okay, Counting on Katherine by Helene Becker, illustrated by Dal Fumaruk. I think that's how you say it. Katherine loved to count. She counted the steps to the road, the steps up to church, the number of dishes and spoons she washed in the bright white sink. The only things she didn't count were the stars in the sky. Only a fool, she thought, would try that. Even so, the stars sparked her imagination. What was out there? Katherine yearned to know as much as she could about numbers, about the universe, about everything. These beautiful pictures. Katherine's boundless curiosity turned her into a star student. She was so bright, she skipped 3 whole grades. She catapulted right past her brother. He wasn't too happy about that. Looks like her family. And there's Katherine teaching the class. By the time she turned 10, Katherine was ready for high school. But back then, America was legally segregated by race. Her town's high school didn't admit black students of any age. Katherine burned with fury. She wanted more than anything to keep learning. There was still so much to know. Count on me, Katherine's father told her. By working night and day, he earned enough money to move the family to a town with a black high school. Katherine loved high school. She was good at every subject, but math was still her favorite. She dreamed of becoming a research mathematician, making discoveries about the number patterns that are the foundations of our universe. In those days, though, there were no jobs as research mathematicians for women. Professions most available to them were teaching and nursing. So Katherine became an elementary school teacher. She liked her job and she loved her students, but she never stopped dreaming about exploring numbers. In the 1950s, the U.S. government's National Advisory Committee on Aeronautics, or NACA, hired thousands of new employees. It even started hiring black women as mathematicians. Katherine heard about the mathematician jobs. Her heart raced with excitement. Perhaps her dream could come true after all. But when she applied for one of the positions, she was told they were already filled. Katherine had to wait a whole year until new spots opened up. Her patience paid off. She got the job. A few years later, the Soviet Union sent a rocket ship into space, launching a space race with the United States. NACA was rolled into a new space agency, the National Aeronautics and Space Administration, or NASA. Katherine now found herself at the heart of America's space program. She worked as a computer. Electronic computers were not widely used yet, calculating long series of numbers. All the computers were women. They were given the tasks that men thought were boring and unimportant. That didn't bother Katherine. She knew that without her contributions, a spaceship couldn't reach its destination nor safely return to Earth. Here's why. Sending a rocket ship into space is like throwing a ball into the air. At first, the force of the throw sends the ball up, 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 just like that. But as its energy runs out, the ball's path curves back toward the ground. Where it lands depends on what angle it was thrown and how high and how fast it flew. Because math is a kind of language, Katherine could ask those questions. How high would the rocket ship go and how fast would it travel? Using numbers. And numbers would provide the all-important answer, where would it land? To find out, Katherine plotted the numbers she'd calculated on a graph. When she joined the points together, they formed a curved line. At one end of that line was Earth at the time the rocket ship launched. At the other was where Earth would be when the ship landed. Katherine's reputation for accuracy and strong leadership skills, she was known for asking plenty of questions, got her promoted to Project Mercury, a new program designed to send the first American astronauts into space. Mercury's missions were going to be dangerous, so dangerous that even the project's star astronaut, John Glenn, refused to fly unless Katherine okayed the numbers. "You can count on me," she said. Glenn's spacecraft Friendship 7 orbited Earth 3 times and returned home safely. Glenn became a national hero. Katherine was promoted again. Now she was asked to calculate the flight paths for Project Apollo, the first flights to the moon. "Count on me," she said. On July 20th, 1969, the Apollo 11 astronauts walked on the moon. Their feat was celebrated around the world. More triumphs followed. Apollo 12 rocketed to the moon in November 1969. Apollo 13 launched on April 11th, 1970, but on the third day of Apollo 13's flight, the worst thing happened: an explosion in space. Could the crippled spaceship make it to the moon? And if it didn't, would it be able to get back home to Earth? The 3 astronauts on board were in grave peril. Commander Jim Lovell told Mission Control, "Houston, we've had a problem." Back on Earth, Katherine Johnson got a phone call. Her flight path calculations would have to be done all over again and perfectly. It would be the toughest challenge of her life. Katherine told Mission Control, "You can count on me." She rolled up her sleeves, took a deep breath, and began doing the math. She worked hard and fast. A few hours later, Katherine's calculations were finished. The flight path to return home would take the ship around the far side of the moon. From there, the moon's gravity would act like a slingshot to zing the ship back to Earth. To get home, the crew of Apollo 13 would have to follow Katherine's course exactly by burning off fuel at precise intervals. If the astronauts made a mistake, their ship would drift through space forever. Katherine waited anxiously to hear the astronauts' report. Finally, it crackled over the loudspeakers. "We've got it!" Apollo 13 was back on track. Katherine Johnson had done it. She'd brought Apollo 13 home. She was no longer the kid who dreamed of what lay beyond the stars. She was now a star herself. Katherine Johnson was born on August 26, 1918 in White Sulphur Springs, West Virginia. Her mother was a teacher. Katherine assumed she'd grow up to be a teacher too. From her youngest days, it was clear to everyone that Katherine was extremely bright. When she officially started school, she went straight into 2nd grade. Later, she skipped grade 5. Katherine graduated from high school at 14 and West Virginia State College at 18. Her first job was teaching math in Marion, Virginia. She loved helping her students learn and encouraged them to learn from one another. "I had my students find a buddy and help each other." In 1953, Katherine got a job as a computer at the Langley Aeronautical Laboratory for the National Advisory Committee for Aeronautics, later NASA. To counter ingrained sexism there, she had to develop more than math skills. We needed to be assertive as women in those days, assertive and aggressive. Still, Katherine was kept out of the research team's all-male briefings. Eventually, they got tired of answering all my questions and just let me in. Spurred by competition with the Soviet Union, the United States ramped up its own space program in 1958, and Katherine became an aerospace technologist when her team joined NASA. By the late 1960s, NASA estimates more than 400,000 people were working on sending a man to the moon. It's a lot. Katherine says the whole idea of going into space was new and daring. There were no textbooks. We had to write them. We wrote the first textbook by hand. Katherine did her calculations on mechanical tabulating machines. By 1961, electronic computers were coming into wider use, but many people, including John Glenn, didn't trust the computer-generated numbers. "Call Katherine," she remembers him saying. "If she says the number is right, I'll take it." Her role, however, always involved more than mere number crunching. It relied heavily on hunches. By letting her imagination run free, Katherine developed a key backup navigation system that used the stars as guideposts. Katherine's contributions were crucial to America's space program. She calculated the trajectory for Alan Shepard's first flight into space and devised the trajectories for space capsules and lunar landing modules. She co-authored 26 scientific papers, including a groundbreaking report on the theoretical underpinnings of spaceflight. Later in her career, she worked on the space shuttle and on a satellite project that searched the globe for underground minerals, other natural resources from space. In 2015, Katherine received the Presidential Medal of Freedom. Despite her many achievements, Katherine never liked to take any credit. Her reason? Because we always worked as a team, she says. It was never just one person. Thank you for listening to this incredible book. Katherine Johnson unfortunately passed away in February, and it was a very sad day for mathematicians everywhere and people in general who Katherine paved the way for women, and particularly women of color. So we're grateful that we have this person in our history who did so much for people. Tune in for more books about wonderful mathematicians from yours truly, Miss Tilly, and I hope everyone's staying safe at home and taking care of one another. Let's talk to you soon. Bye.